Celestial Viscera. Part 1. The External Mechanism. 1. The Sonic Alchemy. It begins not with a word, but with a frequency. 261.626 Hz. Middle C. But this is not a piano in a quiet room. This is the resonant frequency of the ventilation shaft in sub-basement 4 of the old Zenith manufacturing plant. Elias traced it with a contact microphone, his ear pressed to the cold steel, listening for the ghost in the machine. His studio was a cathedral of refuse. A Roland June 60, its circuits patched with salvaged copper, sat beside a heap of discarded motherboards, their gold fingers pointing in silent accusation. A Theremin's antennae trembled in the draft. This was his orchestra. The goal was not his melody, but transmutation, to take the leaden, toxic hue of the world and spin it into gold. He captured the ventilator's drone, a flat, oppressive C. Then the staccato crackle of a digital crown, a corrupted file of a politician's speech, looped and reversed. He fed in the sound of rain on hot asphalt, the sizzle and spit of it, and the distant forlorn cry of a train horn, a sound that was all loneliness. They were ugly sounds, isolated, jarring. He began the work. The Juno provided a bed of warm, analog sawtooth waves, a human heartbeat against the machine cold. He pitch-shifted the politician's crackle until it became a rhythmic glitch, a percussive skeleton. He fed the train horn through a granular synthesizer, stretching it into a vast, ethereal pad that sounded like the memory of a forgotten homeland. The rain became not rain, but a shower of crystalline dust. He twisted knobs, his fingers moving with the certainty of a priest at an altar. He was searching for the resonant peak, the point where the sum of the noises would become more than their parts. He layered the processed train horn over the ventilator's drone. For a moment they clashed, a dissonant war. Then he introduced a sequence from the Juno, a simple, ascending pattern of notes that seemed to stitch the chaos together. And it happened. The sounds folded into one another. The oppressive drone became the foundation for a soaring, melancholic harmony. The glitching politician became a complex, compelling rhythm. The crystalline rain provided a shimmering top end. What had been noise was now a hymn, a sad, beautiful, and strangely hopeful hymn for a dying world. For 3 minutes and 17 seconds, the air in the room changed. It felt lighter, charged. Elias felt a pressure in his chest release. He had, for a fleeting moment, alchemized the anguish of the external world into a thing of profound, aching beauty. The sequence ended. The machine's word, the raw, untreated hum of the ventilator returned, louder and more intrusive than before. The gold had already begun to flake away, revealing the base metal beneath. But for those 3 minutes, he had proven it was possible. He had found the frequency. 2. Chrome Limbo. The transition was not a cut, but a fade. The final decaying note of Elias's hymn bled into the sterile, recycled air of a place with no windows. This was the chrome limbo. Maya stood at a gate that didn't exist for a flight that was perpetually delayed. The air was a perfect 71 degrees Fahrenheit, odorless. The light came from everywhere and nowhere, reflecting off the polished floors and minimalist benches in a way that hurt the eyes if you looked too long. There were others here, their forms sleek and undefined, their faces smoothed into a pleasant, neutral blur by the sheer lack of stimulus. A soft orchestral version of a pop song she couldn't quite name, played from hidden speakers, its melody sanded down of all emotion. She checked the departure board. Lines of text scrolled a cascade of cities and times, but they were just glyphs, devoid of meaning. Paris, 14:30. Tokyo, 21:15. The words were beautiful and empty. She felt for her phone, a cool slap in her hand. No notifications, no service, just the time, which had read 4:18 p.m. for as long as she could remember. She tried to speak to the figure next to her. "Excuse me," she said, her voice absorbed by the room as if it were made of felt. The figure turned its blurred face towards her, smiled a smile that was all teeth and no eyes, and then turned back to watching the empty tarmac. There was no sound of engines, only the distant constant hum of the HVAC system, a cousin to Elias's ventilator, but here it was the only heartbeat. This was not a place of punishment, it was a place of pause, a buffer zone between one state of being and another, but the between had become the permanent state. She was a packet of data queued for transmission, caught in an infinite loop. The chrome limbo was perfect, safe, and utterly resonant. It was the lax, made physical. The immortal jester's grin. A crackle, a shard of noise, a pop-up ad projected onto the chrome wall of the limbo. It was him, the jester. His face was a composite of every cartoon mascot, every celebrity influencer, every politician's photo-op smile. It was terrifying in its benevolence. His eyes were spinning logos. "Feeling stuck?" the jester boomed, his voice a layered cacophony of baritone authority and helium-induced glee. "Lost in the maze of modernity? Try Ego Dissolve, the all-new patent-pending supplement that gently erases the painful burden of self. Subscribe now and get a free download of forgotten nursery rhymes." Maya flinched. The jester's grin widened, pixel stretching at the edges. He began to rap, a hyperactive glitch-hop beat kicking in from nowhere. "Your data is messy, your soul is a stain. Let me scrub out the sorrow, the grief, and the pain. With a click and a swipe and a verbal agreement, you'll be happy and shiny, just like my new teeth." He wasn't selling a product, he was selling oblivion with a beat. He was the embodiment of the system's manic need to commodify every sensation, even the desire to escape it. He flickered, replaced by a meme of a crying cat, then a clip of a nuclear explosion set to a euphoric dance drop, then back to his own grinning face. Confused? That's the first sign of awareness. Awareness is pain. Let me fix that for you. The grin was the only constant. It was the unblinking eye of the webcam on her laptop, the emoji she used to soften a harsh text, the relentless cheerful branding of the corporation that probably owned the Chrome Limbo. It was a grin that knew everything was a joke, and the punchline was your own consumption. It was the sound of Elias's alchemy, corrupted and put into an advertisement. It was the noise that filled the lack. The lack's resonance. The jester's signal cut out. The chrome wall was blank again. Maya tried to hold on to the manic energy, the color, the noise. Anything was better than the silence. She opened her mouth to scream, to shatter the perfect suffocating stillness. The sound left her lungs, traveled through the air, and hit the wall. It did not echo, it did not ring. It was simply absorbed. It vanished into the nullity, leaving not even a ripple. It was like screaming into a black hole. She remembered a story she'd heard about a man who had composed a symphony out of the sounds of the city. He had for a moment made it beautiful. She tried to hum the fragment of a melody she thought she remembered from somewhere, a folk song her mother might have sung, a simple sequence of notes. She hummed them. The notes left her lips and died. They lacked resonance. They had no weight, no substance in this place. They were ghosts before they were even fully born. The chrome limbo was a perfect acoustic absorber for the soul. It tolerated presence but denied impact. She could exist here forever, a perfect, polished specimen, and never make a dent in the world. She was a sound wave perfectly out of phase with reality, perpetually canceling herself out. 5. Bridge of Oni. Elias, back in his studio, was losing the thread. The sonic alchemy was failing him. The sounds he captured were just sounds again. The gold had turned back to lead. He was exhausted. His nerves frayed by the constant hum he could no longer transform. He slumped over his console, his forehead resting on the cool wood. Sleep took him not as a gentle tide, but as a sudden system crash. And he found himself on the bridge. It was not a structure of stone or steel, but of woven light and memory. It stretched across an abyss of swirling, color-soaked clouds, the stuff of dreams, the Oneros. The walkway was a mosaic of half-remembered faces, forgotten fears, and unfulfilled desires, all flickering like a bad connection. This was the Bridge of Oni, a path he had built with his art, and now his subconscious was walking it. Others were on the bridge, sleepers all, their forms vague and shifting. A man in a business suit was trying to build a house out of falling sand. A child was crying over a broken toy that kept reassembling itself into monstrous shapes. Elias walked on, drawn toward a pulsing light on the far side. But the bridge was unstable. As he walked, the dream stuff beneath his feet would sometimes give way, and he would feel the terror of falling, only to be deposited back on the path a few steps later. He saw others less fortunate. A woman screaming silently had sunk into the bridge up to her knees, the liquefied memories holding her fast. She was becoming part of the structure, another nightmare pylon for future travelers. He realized this was the danger of the bridge. It wasn't a safe passage. It was a filter. Most people never made it across. Their dreams were too heavy, too fragmented, too corrupted by the waking world. They got stuck, their personal anxieties bleeding out into the collective unconscious, adding to the static that made the journey so treacherous. His own sonic alchemy had been an attempt to create a stable frequency to cross on. Now he was just another sleeper, risking dissolution. 6. Kronos and the Wraith. He was jolted awake by the blare of his alarm. 7 a.m. Kronos had him again. The day was a conveyor belt. Shower, dress, commute, work. Each task a click of the mechanism pulling him inexorably forward. He sat at his desk, the clock on his computer screen a digital testament to Kronos' reign. 9:14. 9:15. 9:16. Each minute a perfect identical unit consumed by the machine. And then, the glitch. He reached for his coffee mug, and for a single heart-stopping second, he saw a crack in it that wasn't there. He smelled ozone. The light from the window flickered, and for that instant, the time on the screen read 9:13. He felt a profound and unsettling sense of déjà vu, a memory of this exact moment that included the crack in the mug. This was the Wraith, Kronos' opposite. Not the forward march, but the skipped record, the repeated hour, the ghost in the timeline. The memory flooded him. He was back on the Bridge of Oni, standing at the exact spot where he'd seen the woman sinking. The feeling was identical to this déjà vu, a sticky, resonant overlap of realities. Kronos advanced, 9:16 becoming 9:17, reasserting its authority. The crack in the mug was gone. The memory of the dream faded, leaving only a psychic residue. The Wraith had struck, a fleeting rebellion against the tyranny of the tick-tock, a reminder that time was not a straight line, but a fragile consensus. And Ilias was, with his delving into resonant frequencies, was becoming acutely sensitive to its fractures. 7. Guilt Complex. His lunch break. He walked into the atrium of his office, building a place known as the Guilt Complex. The name was unintentionally perfect. Everything was gold. Gold-plated handrails, gold-leaf ceilings, gold-tone light fixtures. It was a cathedral of commerce and wellness. A banner read, "Curate your authentic self." People moved through the space, their faces masks of serene purpose. They bought overpriced smoothies labeled purity, attended mindfulness seminars in glass-walled rooms, and networked with a kind of desperate fervor. Their conversations were a series of branded statements, their laughs a calibrated social signal. Ilias saw a man he knew, Mark, who had just been downsized. Mark was smiling, telling a group about his exciting new journey into the gig economy. His eyes were hollow, but his voice was polished, gilded. His paint had been electroplated with a shiny veneer of optimistic branding. This was the guilt complex, not a place but the dominant condition. It was the process of taking something of base, emotional metal, fear, sadness, and security, and covering it with a conductive, attractive, and worthless layer of gold. It was the jester's philosophy made manifest in architecture and social interaction. The goal was not to be happy, but to appear happy, not to be authentic, but to convincingly curate authenticity. The sonic alchemy he sought was the polar opposite. It sought to find the true gold within the lead, not to simply plate it. 8. The President of Yesterday. On a large screen in the Guilt Complex, the President of Yesterday was giving a speech. He was a kindly gray-haired man in a comfortable sweater, seated in a wood-paneled library that smelled, through the screen, of old books and pipe smoke. "My friends," he said, his voice a warm analog crackle, "we must return to a simpler time, a time of strong handshakes, of looking a man in the eye, of reading a physical newspaper, a time before all this noise." The crowd in the atrium nodded, soothed. The President of Yesterday spoke of frontiers and manifest destiny, of manufacturing jobs that would never return, of a national spirit that was pure and unwavering. He was selling a memory, and the memory was a comfort. It was a stable frequency in a glitching world. But Ilias, with his attuned ear, heard the flaws in the recording. He heard the subtle digital compression underlying the analog warmth. He saw the green screen flicker at the edges of the wood-paneled library. The President of Yesterday was a deepfake, a sophisticated AI trained on hours of archival footage, generating an endless, reassuring loop of nostalgia. He was the ultimate expression of the false memory palace, a puppet who believed his own strings were a part of his body. He was powerful because people wanted to believe him. He was the king of the chrome limbo, promising a way out that led only deeper in, to a past that had never existed. 9. Aperture Dimensional Key. That night, despondent, Ilias returned to his studio. The guilt complex had sickened him. The President's speech felt like a weight in his stomach. He was about to give up, to let Kronos win, to accept the sollow dawn of a life half-lived. In a fit of frustration, he didn't try to create something beautiful. He plugged in a microphone, held it up to his own chest, and captured the frantic, irregular thumping of his own heart. He captured the shaky sound of his own breathing. Then he took the audio file of the President's speech and fed it into the granulator, shredding it beyond recognition. He mixed in the sound of breaking glass from a dumpster behind his building. He didn't try to harmonize them, he let them clash, the heartbeat, the anxious breath, the shattering glass, the shredded lies. He turned the volume up until the speakers distorted. And in the heart of that cacophony it happened. A seam tore open in the air of his studio, not a physical tear, but a perceptual one, an aperture. For a moment the clashing sounds weren't noise, they were a key. The heartbeat was the rhythm of the giant, the shattering glass was the sound of the chrome limbo cracking, the shredded speech was the death cry of the jester. He saw it all, not as separate chapters, but as a single interconnected system. The limbo, the jester, the guilt, the president, they were all part of the same resistant structure, the external mechanism designed to numb and control. And as sonic alchemy is true alchemy, wasn't about making pretty music, it was about finding the resonant frequency that would shatter the control mechanism itself. The aperture was that frequency. It was a moment of pure unmediated perception. He saw the code behind the reality. It was a terrifying and sublime. It lasted for less than a second, but it was a lifetime. 10. The sober, sallow dawn. The aperture snapped shut. The speakers blew out with a final pathetic pop. Silence rushed back in, thicker and heavier than before. The studio was the same, the junk was still junk, the hum of the ventilator was still there, unchanged. The world had not been saved. The key had turned, but the lock remained. The sun began to rise, its light seeping through the grimy basement window. It was a weak tea-colored light, a sallow light. It fell on the broken speakers, the tangled wires, the dust motes dancing in the air like forgotten ideas. There was no magic left, the ecstatic clarity of the aperture was gone, and in its place was only the residue, the knowledge of the system, and his own utter powerlessness before it. He had seen the truth, and the truth had left him. Elias sat on the floor, his back against the cold wall. He felt the gritty concrete against his skin. He smelled the dust and ozone. He heard the first cars of the morning beginning their commute on the street above. This was it. This was the reality. The sober, sallow dawn. The coffee, when he finally managed to make it, tasted like ash. The grand revelation had ended not with a bang, but with the mundane, crushing weight of another day.